Hello, hey everyone, welcome to Maureen Unlogged. As you can see, I am not Maureen, I am standing in for her today. I am Peter Madara and I'm Maureen's husband. So today I want to talk about identity. It's a topic that's been near and dear to my heart for such a long, long time. And the question on identity is who am I? I mean, who am I really? At the core, who am I? Am I the things that I own? Am I the goals that I hope to achieve? Am I my relationships? Who am I? So we all have identities, or at least we all have who we perceive ourselves to be. Or in some cases, it's who we want other people to perceive us to be. And all those identities that we have, how we identify ourselves or how we perceive ourselves, are identities that we forged over the so many years of our lives that have led us to this day. And just like anything else, identity is not a constant. It's something which is evolving over time. For me, when I look back in my story, I forged my identity as, call it a high achiever from a pretty young age, from the fact that back in school, I used to do really well, get really good grades, come out top in class. And so over time, they evolved, at least in my own perception of myself, this idea that who I am is a high achiever. And so wherever I went, that's how I identified myself. The people around me, that's how they identified me. My classmates, my friends, family, they all identified me with these attributes that, hey, I'm this guy who does well in class. Not that they did not mean well, they certainly meant well. And these are all people who love me and people who still love me, especially when it comes to close friends and family. But, we are people and we have ways that we try to identify ourselves as well as identify others. And so that identity of myself, which I sort of forged at a really young age, it took me into high school and then into being a young adult in the workforce. And just to give you more insight into how deeply ingrained this identity was, back in high school, I had nicknames like teacher or book, just to sort of encapsulate this idea that I was always the high performer, the high achiever when it came to doing well in class. And so with the transition into adulthood, that sort of identity I'd forged for myself, it persisted, obviously, because up to that, for the rest of my life up to that point as a young man, I had pretty much thrived on this identity. Going into the workplace, I was always concerned about being the best. Uh, don't get me wrong, I love what I do, and I love what I've always done over the years. And out of that, I always received lots of validation from my co-workers, from my bosses about, hey, good job. And that really meant a lot. But as far as that identity was concerned, that identity of Peter, the high achiever, really, really thrived based on that. Now, at the same time, I was, and I still am, a highly driven person. But in my younger days, when my identity was, hey, I'm Peter, the high achiever, I mean, that was how I perceived myself and how I wanted other people to perceive me. There was a certain part of me which was always under so much intense pressure to be an achiever. And in my own definition of what achievement or success meant at that point, it basically meant doing really well materially, advancing at a rapid pace in my career, reaching a level where I would earn so much money and have so many possessions, and that really consumed me to a very, very significant degree. Uh, Someone looking at me from the outside that say, "Hey, that guy is highly driven," and there's nothing wrong with being driven, but it's just that when the reason you are so driven is to satisfy an identity in you that wants to be associated with, hey, this is that guy, the success, that guy, the achiever, then there's a certain level at which it becomes unhealthy. In my case, it just produced this intense pressure. And I look back to my younger days and I can see, especially after I got married, after that, man, I need to make it really, really, really big. I was just under so much pressure, which was self-imposed, because there was no one else sort of laying those expectations on me. It was me laying those expectations on myself. And a big part of that was the perception that I had that, oh, other people perceive me as the guy that has always been successful. And so I need to continue on that trend where I'm still that successful guy when they look at me. Over time, there were also other really negative aspects that came about. One of the things which sort of happened over time is that because I did not reach what I had defined as, hey, this is what success looks like, based on this identity of this is what this successful guy ought to be at this particular point in time, a certain part of me started being ashamed of where I was. I know it may be surprising. I was looking from the outside, someone would say I was really blessed, and I am really blessed, and I'm really thankful for that. But there was this part of my identity which yearned to get even more validation from people that was consuming me to such a degree that I was becoming ashamed. So I'll give you an example of what that looked like. So I lived in a three-bedroom townhome. It's a beautiful place, which works really well for me and my family. But because this identity I crafted for myself as this guy, the high achiever, a part of me started becoming ashamed of it. Say, oh, I need to have a bigger house, a more grand house. And there's nothing wrong with a big house. There's nothing wrong with a grand house. But deep down, the reason that I wanted to have such a grand house was so that people would look at me and say, wow, look, he's such a success. He has such a big house. It's such a grand house. And so because of that, I sort of held back from things as easy, as simple as inviting people to come over. And so I missed out on building some great friendships because there was that part of my identity which wanted to be seen a certain way, which in my perspective, I was failing to live up to. So for me, all that started to change as I started learning about, well, what is my true identity? Am I the things that I own? Am I the things I possess? Am I the things that I hope to possess in future? Am I the relationships that I have now? Am I the job that I do? Am I my job title? Am I how people at work perceive me? That started to change when I started learning about my true identity. And for me, I learned it from my relationship with God. It was a journey over many, many years, a journey that I went on in the community of a band of brothers, a group of men in a men's Bible study group, as well as in a small group of married couples, where we would talk about all sorts of different things built on a biblical foundation. One of the books that we went through, which was most impactful, is a book called Wild at Heart by John Eldredge. And for me, it was a real eye-opener. Just going through this book, reading it as a group. For me personally, as we were going through this book, I could see all the things that I felt and struggled with uh, over the years, written in a book, and the reasons for having felt that way, analyzed and ultimately tied to, hey, it's all because there's this identity that we've crafted for ourselves over time in order to make life work. And it works up to a point, but then beyond a certain point, it starts to crack. Because that identity that you craft for yourself, it ultimately will not give you the satisfaction or the full validation that you're hoping for at the core. At the core, I really wanted to know that I matter. I really wanted to know that I am important. And reaching out to, how well I did in school or how well I did at work or the kind of house that I live in, it was all trying to reach for something which would confer to me that sense of importance. And obviously, anything you can try to grasp for, you will never reach that point of full fulfillment. For example, you might have the biggest house in the neighborhood, but once you drive outside your neighborhood, there's going to be an even bigger house. And so that identity, which thrives on, hey, I have the biggest house in the neighborhood. Guess what? The moment you meet someone with a bigger house, then you're going to start feeling like, whoa, maybe you're not really worthy of whatever dignity that you're after. And so, really coming to that point of knowing that my identity is based on my relationship with God, my worth as a person is based on the fact that I am uniquely loved by God. No matter what I have, no matter what I don't have, no matter what I can do or what I can't do, that has become the foundation of my identity. And it is absolutely, absolutely liberating. Now, before I continue, I just want to talk a little more about, that journey that I went on in the community of believers. The thing which I learned over the years is that you can go to a Bible study group for years and actually never grow. And the thing that makes a difference is, are you willing to be vulnerable? Obviously, you need a group that's safe, where you know it is safe to be vulnerable. If you're in a group where you talk about something and then the next thing is being posted elsewhere by one of the group members, obviously that's not a safe place. But once you have that small group of people that is a safe place, you need to be absolutely vulnerable. And that's what I did. Is it easy to be vulnerable? Absolutely not. Because you are exposing yourself at the very core, exposing your fears, exposing the things that you've tried to cover all your life by crafting up an identity that you go about using to make life work. When you go to places, you introduce yourself, hey, this is who I am. And it's an identity meant to present yourself a certain way. So obviously being asked to be vulnerable, to expose who you really are, it's not an easy thing, but it's worth it if you are to grow. So just wanted to say that. So moving on to, so where am I now? Now that I'm in this place where I know my true identity is based on my relationship with God, that He absolutely loves me, no matter who I am, what I've done, what I haven't done. It means that I'm in this place of freedom where I can be free to be myself. It's as easy as I can be free to invite people over and just build those social relationships, which are absolutely just rewarding. It means that at my work, I can focus on doing the right thing, even if the right thing may not necessarily be pleasing, even if the right thing may be the difficult thing to do, which may not earn me friends, but may produce some alienation. It means that I'm free to do that because I'm not trying to get validation out of my work or out of my relationships with people. And don't get me wrong, I love what I do. I love to collaborate. I always want to be in good books with the people that I work with and the people that I relate with in social settings. But if my goal is to get validation out of those relationships, then I end up in that place where I lose that freedom, the freedom to be me, the freedom to do what is right by my conscience, and I'd end up going with the flow to do what pleases people. Does it mean that I never struggle with identity issues? Absolutely not. I still struggle a lot. The only difference is that in some places, I'm quick to recognize that, oops, this thing which is showing up, which is causing me to feel this way, is because that old identity, which was based on uh, validation, that want for validation from others, it's rearing its head again. Sometimes I'm quick to recognize that. And there are many other times when I may not even recognize it, especially when it comes to something which I've not really encountered before. And it will come in many, many different forms. So it could be, for example, that I may be having a conversation with my wife, and she might say something which might cause me to have an adverse reaction. I've been through it many times now that when I have an adverse reaction, I know to have a conversation about it, and we can have a good, sane conversation without things spiraling out of control. But those things still happen. The one other way in which that old identity or validation still shows up a lot is when it comes to, call it doing good things. Good things such as actually helping. So I've always had the heart to help, and helping is a good thing. It does make a difference to others. And but there are some times where my heart may not be in that place, but I feel like, oh, there is an expectation that I help. And so I would sort of feel that pressure to jump in and help, just so, so that I can meet that expectation. And taking one step back, well, where would that pressure be coming from? And what does it lead to? Remember that, at least in my case, my old identity, which I'd forged for myself, was based on getting validation. So when it comes to helping, just getting that, oh, thank you so much, you helped me. I don't know what I could have done. In my old identity, that would have been that validation, say, oh, I actually matter because I helped someone. But in my identity, which is based on my relationship with God, it's not looking for validation. It does make a difference. There are times when I've helped, someone, and they just never came around to thank me. In my old identity, that would have been really offensive. Say, how dare they that I helped them and they do not come to thank me? Why? Because the identity was built on validation. But with my new identity, which is my real identity, by the way, based on my relationship with God, if someone does not say thank you, that is absolutely okay. Why? Because who I am is not based on the thank yous that I get from people. Who I am is based on who God says I am. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share with you. I'll leave this question with you. Who are you? Who are you really at the core? Are you the things that you own? Are you the relationships you have? Are you the connections you have? Are you the things that you hope to have? Are you your job title? Are you your career? If any of those things were taken away from you, who would you become? I'll leave that with you as food for thought. Last but not least, if you like this video, please go ahead and click subscribe. Thank you for listening.